As some additional folks hop on, I just wanted to give a few housekeeping items before we begin this evening. We're very happy that you're joining us, all of our parent family members, for a really great discussion about the fraternity sorority experience and kind of what your role is and what we can do to partner and support you, especially answering your questions tonight. That's going to be first and foremost why we're here. This evening, we would like you to kind of navigate your screen and look at the bottom. There should be a Q&A section that you can click on, and that will give you access to entering a question in for our panelists. What we'll do is there'll be a variety of responses that could be either a written response to you, if we're trying to share a link with you or a specific resource that we want to point you towards. But also our participants will be answering those live. And so if you ask a question, just hang on tight and we'll get to those and give you your response. And really excited to have you all joining us this evening. I'm going to give a quick look at my panel to make sure we're all good to go. So again, good evening. My name is Nick O'Neill, and I have the honor of serving as the Director of Fraternity Sorority Life here at the University of Idaho. Really happy that you all can join us for an evening of questions and answers and really hopefully fruitful discussion around supporting fraternity sorority students or future fraternity sorority students that are coming to U of I this fall. We're really excited that your student is considering this experience, and we think that it could be one of the best decisions that they can make, because I think, as you'll hear throughout our panel and discussion this evening, it is quite frankly one of the best decisions that I think, speaking for everybody for a moment, that we've probably made in our lives and during our collegiate experiences. So I'm joined this evening by a number of folks that I'll have introduce themselves. I'm going to go through and call on each of them, and they're going to share their name, their background, who they're affiliated with, and kind of what role they serve in supporting our community or a chapter in our community as well. So this evening, first person I have on my grid would be Mitch. If you want to give us a start.
Hi, I'm Mitch Sonnet. I'm a graduate from Idaho in computer science. I'm a member of Phi Gamma Delta. We also go by Fiji. I'm currently the president of the Board of Chapter Advisors, and it's an advisory group, and we're pretty close to the day-to-day operations of the fraternity. And this year in particular, we're celebrating our 100th year, so I know the guys in the house pretty well, and I'm pretty involved with campus.
That's great. Thank you, Mitch, and congrats on the 100-year anniversary again. Next on my screen, I have Katie. Katie, would you mind introducing yourself?
Just takes a minute there. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Katie Reichart. I also was a attendee of the University of Idaho. I pledged at that time Alpha Gamma Delta. I am currently on the Executive Council and Advisor Board for Alpha Gamma Delta now that I am out of college. My son actually is an active member in fraternity life at the University of Idaho right now.
Thank you, Katie, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. I welcome the previous sentiments that we are so glad to have you on this question and answer session this evening. In my professional life, I'm a staff member in the financial aid office here at University of Idaho. And in my personal life, I was a student here a little over 10 years ago. I graduated, and I'm also a member of Gamma Phi Beta Sorority. I serve as our local corporation board president, as well as I'm a member on the regional team of advisors. So I manage other chapters, advisory boards for our region on the member side, and my local role is certainly more focused on the facilities management side. So I get a little bit of both. So hopefully we can answer some questions for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Appreciate it. Next on my list, I show Richard. Richard, would you mind introducing yourself? Might be able to come back just in case there's a connection issue, or he might have needed to step out for a second. And then one of the participants that will be joining us this evening and kind of helping along with your question and answers that you put into that server is going to be our assistant director. Shani, if you would mind introducing yourself here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shani Sullivan. I currently serve as the Assistant Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life here at the University of Idaho. You won't be seeing me throughout the evening, but I will be kind of facilitating some of the questions that you asked. So just as Nick said, remember you can use the Q&A section or the chat function, and we're happy to have the panelists answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Shani. I appreciate all the support putting this together for the community as well. So I think we're ready to get started. But what I thought what we would do this evening is really what through those introductions you've heard is that there's a network here that is supporting our community, supporting each individual chapter, and what that looks like is some of the folks here on this call are our colleagues and our partners supporting the chapters from an advisory standpoint, all the way to the national level with our national organizations and their headquarters. And what we hope in that the brief introduction and what you've been able to learn a little bit about these panelists is that fraternity sorority life is a lifetime commitment. It's a lifetime oath that your son or daughter, or maybe even yourself, have taken, or that your son or daughter hopefully will be taking this fall. That speaks to a lifetime of support, of commitment, of friendship and belonging in an organization and a professional network that will allow them to thrive and hopefully achieve great heights in their collegiate career and beyond. And clearly from our panel of speakers here, you could see that lifetime commitment in the continuation of their work and volunteer and commitment and giving back of their time, energy, and talents to their organizations as well. But I wanted to kind of get us started with a pre-written question here as folks are thinking about the questions that they want to ask, and see what is one piece of advice that right off the bat, let's dive in, one piece of advice that you want to give to our parents and family members that could be on the call or watching this afterward for their student as they're considering going through fraternity sorority recruitment and looking into the experience. So what kind of one piece of advice that initially comes to mind? Maggie, would you mind kicking us off with that response?
One thing that I always recommend to folks is if your child is at all interested, encourage them to just go out, do it, sign up for recruitment. That was a big point of pride for me and a selling point when I was a student just starting out looking at colleges and universities, that I could actually live in a chapter facility my first year. And that's unique to my Pan-Hellenic experience. Of course, we do have wonderful chapters that don't have facilities necessarily on campus, and that does not at all detract from those students' experience. That was just a big thing that I was looking forward to and excited about, though, was getting to kind of move in and be with my sisters right from the get-go. And so I think that if your student is inclined towards leadership, philanthropic activities, or they're just starting to get interested in these pursuits, this is a great place to foster those experiences and give your students confidence that they can be a part of something that's bigger than themselves and still feel connected to, at first, their more intimate small chapter group relative to the broader campus community that they instantly become a part of as part of the Vandal family on our campus. And by all means, if your student is on the fence and they decide to not go through formal recruitment in the fall, we have great recruitment opportunities in the spring as well. So maybe they just are not yet sure, and that's okay. We want to encourage, but not force, right? So just think about what their hopes are, what their dreams are for college. If they're curious, if they're wanting this experience of a more residential Greek community, this is a fabulous place to step in, get involved, find that network, that web of friends that become family, that become lifelong leaders to each other. And I really think too, like another big aspect that is so beneficial here that I've seen now firsthand as an alumna is the advisor support. So don't think that your student is just going to, land in Moscow and that's it. Now they're going to be led by a bunch of other 18 to 22-year-olds, although they will be with great care, but there's so many other people here to help them and watch them succeed and to cheer them on. So too, like if that's something that you're at all leery about, don't be. Like there's people like those of us on the panel tonight that want to see them do so well, and we're happy and ready to encourage them. So that'd be my advice. Just go for it 100%.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think you spoke a lot of gold, as we would say, in that response. That, there's moments and there's opportunities, especially going through recruitment, that going through the recruitment experience and getting a chance to learn what the experience is all about, but also getting to meet others is not in and of itself a commitment. So you're not signing your life away to fraternity sorority membership just by going through the recruitment process. In fact, that's your trial run. That's why it's set up that way, and that's why all of our effort is to expose you to the, behind the scenes a little bit, so you know what you're joining and can make the best decision. Katie, anything that you want to add into that, and advice that you have for some of our parents and family members?
So, obviously being out of the space in terms of being at the university, obviously my experience is a little bit different than Maggie's, because I'm not going to date myself, but I experienced, some absolutely amazing opportunities, just as Maggie said, to build these lifelong friendships. And so if there's anything that I can recommend as, an active member, both in the house as well as the alum, is for parents to really get active in looking at what each sorority and or fraternity stands for. We have an aggressive push in terms of social media support. You're going to see a lot of different things. You're going to see the values of what each fraternity and sorority stand for, and take a look to research it. If you're concerned about your son or your daughter going into, a house and being part of that organization, find out what their core values are, find out what they stand for. I can just share briefly, as having a parent actively involved in fraternity life right now. One of the things that I noticed immediately, especially during this situation with COVID-19, was the sense of brotherhood that was established for him very quickly. And in a time when a lot of our children are feeling very isolated, for those that have, their children back home, some, just coming into the university area for the first time as freshmen, or even maybe transferring as sophomores, you don't really know a lot of individuals. You don't really know a lot of people. And then to be pulled from that atmosphere in what we're dealing with quarantines, it was very hard to stay connected. And what I thought was absolutely outstanding was the quick shift that every fraternity and sorority did on the campus, to really make sure that camaraderie and that brotherhood and sisterhood was happening, even in the digital space. So it definitely provided a great sense of, family, when in essence it wasn't able to be completed because of, the fact that the university was not continuing past a certain point due to the lockdown. So I would say, as a parent and even as an active member myself at one time, you don't expect to establish the lifelong relationships that you do. So as you're looking at the university, as you are looking at those sororities and fraternities, take a look at their alumni pages as well. As a matter of fact, I was completely blown away by, as Mitchell was referencing Fiji, they just had a very large gathering where they're really helping out additional brothers just finish school. And there's some really amazing stories that you can look at on social media platforms, from the University of Idaho to the individual houses and chapters, and you could really get a really good sense of what they stand for. The concepts and thoughts, a lot are, you go to school just to, get together with a whole bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, right, and just have a great time. But let me tell you something, there's a lot involved in terms of philanthropy, giving back, community involvement. There is a ton of stuff involved about succession planning, leadership building, and skills. We have some of the best leaders, even across the nation, that have come from really just top-notch sororities and fraternities. And it doesn't just stop at the University of Idaho campus. When they leave, the network becomes the entire nation. So it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. And I would definitely say that, take some time to do some research and find out for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate that. And I think you hit it spot on with the bigger network that they're joining, and also the opportunity that our parent and family members have to do their own research and get to know the organization. Mm-hmm. So then you know what to expect and what you're going to get for your investment that you're putting in. So I could not have said it better, so I won't say any more. Moving on over, Mitch, would love to ask you our next question, if you want to kick us off with responding to this one, is can you share a little bit, pull the curtain back a little bit and share a little bit about what you do in your role as an advisor to develop the chapter and some of the work that is done with the volunteers and advisors to support the chapters?
Sure. I think the main thing is my role is different than, so my wife is a Tri-Delta. She's actually House Corporation President of Tri-Delta, and she manages the physical structure and the physical plant. My role is a little bit different. It's advisory, and my whole charter has been to build relationships with the undergraduates in the House, and then build relationships with the university as well as our national organization. So I'm kind of in the middle of that triangle of people, trying to provide advice around scholarship and some of the philanthropy pieces, a little bit, actually quite a bit on recruiting as well. So just fundamentally, it's really to provide a more of almost a corporate view of how to manage some of these pieces, because these undergraduates, it's really their first experience quite often to take leadership roles and planning roles, and kind of dovetailing my corporate experience and the project management experience that I have has really helped, I think, a lot to give just a different perspective. And I'm also a sounding board. When they start generating ideas, talking about options and scenarios and potential outcomes is another conversation that we often have.
That's great. You painted a perfect picture of how multifaceted that advisory role can be, and I think you spot on with the piece that we have undergraduate students that are coming in, and in many ways, I think what's often understated is that they have a chance to rise to that leadership position and lead a small company in many ways, responsible for hundreds of thousands of dollars in a budget, management of a facility, management of behaviors and development of each other and accountability pieces. I think that is incredibly influential for their future and what they will become in the workforce. And so I appreciate what you're sharing there.
Yeah, definitely. Those undergraduates get a huge opportunity to essentially retain a minor in either sociology or finance or some type of leadership degrees. It's not just living in a building. So they have a huge opportunity. It's a lot of coaching. My role has been an awful lot of coaching. For the most part, it's been a really strong relationship, and they've been very good listeners. So
I might want to shift over and maybe ask one of our last kind of starter questions, if you will, because I do see a healthy amount coming in. Just a reminder to folks attending, feel free to throw your questions into Q&A. Make sure we get to those tonight. But one of our last kind of scripted questions is really to ask, what are some of the common concerns that you hear from parents or family members of our current members that you think would be good insight for the next generation coming in here? And so what are some of those concerns that they bring forward to you, and what can they do to learn more and support their student through it? Rick, are you potentially with us? I don't know if you want to kind of kick us off with that one.
A lot of the concerns we often get is how the houses are organized and how are they doing things and how active the alumni are. And to echo Mitch's point, most of the houses have kind of an advisory group as well as a house corporation group. I happen to sit on both. And so in the advisory role, you're coaching, but in the housing corporation board, the houses are typically owned by a nonprofit corporation that is made up of the alumni, and they literally rent the house to the active collegiate members. But it's up to the active collegiate members to set their budgets, hire their cook, decide what their meal plan is going to be, et cetera. And a lot of parents are really surprised that we give that much responsibility to the collegiate members. And sometimes, we'll get inquiries as to, our son is saying that the food may not be good enough, et cetera. And our advice to them is, well, tell them, they need to speak up and step up in a leadership role and take charge of their situation, and they often do that. And so a lot of fraternity life is basically taking responsibility for yourself and for your peers as a whole, and kind of moving into that type of a leadership role. I guess to summarize it, my experience is I got very comfortable over time being in uncomfortable situations. And because of that experience, it changed the trajectory of my life. And I ended up going out and doing far more than I ever expected I could. But a lot of it was because of that fraternity experience I had as a collegiate member.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I think, that again, that opportunity to have the coaching, to have that support, and really grow into that leadership experience cannot be understated. And really, hoping, that's something for all University of Idaho students. We hope they find their area where they can develop into that. But we definitely nail it in a holistic sense in our community for sure. Looking at my panelists, I don't know if anyone wanted to add something else in there too. Feel free to hop in. Looking at, what are some of the concerns that come forward from parents that you tend to get quite often, and what can they do about those things?
I would just add, I think, to what Rick said. I have two daughters that are, one's in an undergraduate and one's in medical school, and our concerns were more just fundamental going to school and leaving home. It wasn't necessarily concerns about their living group or their Greek environment. So I think the biggest thing in the Greek situation is to actually meet as many people as possible in the house and meet as many graduates as possible. Most of the graduates are involved enough that they're available to answer questions outside of a forum like this, and ask any question you have, because I think for the most part, people are going to be fairly transparent and give you a very honest answer. I know I certainly will. I can tell you an awful lot about what's going on inside of Fiji and what's going on across campus. So, but the concerns were for us with our two daughters leaving were just around general safety, and we just got more educated on both of their environments. So, and we got pretty involved. We're on their campuses. Neither are at Idaho, but we're on their campuses fairly regularly, either going to sporting events or parent weekend type events. So
that's great. Thank you so much, Mitch. Maggie, I saw you started to unmute yourself. Not sure if you wanted to add something in there as well.
I was just going to say, from my financial aid little soapbox, students can use their scholarships, grants, federal student loans to pay for the costs of living in the facilities, and even to pay dues and fees if they did not have a facility that they were living in. So sometimes parents and families are concerned about how that all shakes out. So any type of financial aid that your student may have would first be applied to their tuition and fees, including, if need be, health insurance for the school, and then any residual disbursement would be given to the student, or depending on the type of assistance, if it was like a parent plus loan, then funds may be sent back to the parent in the form of a check. And so you, as a parent or student, family unit, can certainly use any of that aid to pay for their costs. Just to be clear, even though the residence halls are automatically billed with tuition and fees onto their University of Idaho student bill, the fraternities and sororities fees are not. So we act as our own corporations in that sense, and your student would receive a billing statement shortly after joining their chapter. And then, if need be, some chapters do payment plans. Some would give a slight discount if everything was paid in full, and everything in between. So definitely, if you're concerned about the financial aspect of things, contact the financial aid office. Your student has a counselor based on the student's last name, and we can get connected with you that way if you have any questions there. So sorry, thanks, Nick.
No, that's fantastic. It was almost as if you got to see into our general Greek email inbox, because that tends to be one of the most common questions that we receive. So I appreciate you sharing it and so eloquently. All right. I think, I don't know about you all, but I'm really interested to start chipping away at the questions that our participants are asking, and see if we can shift over to Shani to kick us off with asking one of these of the panel.
we have quite a few questions about housing, so I'm going to put those in a bunch. And of course, you're more than welcome to ask other questions as they come up. And this one might just be for Nick because it's a pretty quick question. It says, should my student be registered prior to recruitment for residential housing in the event they do not find a place in a fraternity or sorority as a personal fit?
Great. Another common question that we receive, and we have a really great partnership with our peers over at Housing and Residence Life, that there's an understanding, that if students are looking to have the lived experience in a fraternity or sorority chapter facility, we ask that they not put down the deposit and not register for a residence hall space, mostly because that deposit is generally non-refundable, and we want to be respectful and mindful of the financial resources that our students and you all provide as well. And so we ask that you not do that, and in turn, what we do is we have a great partnership to provide spaces if for some reason through the recruitment experience your student does not feel comfortable, does not find a good fit, or just not the right time for them to join one of our chapters. We're able to set them up with a space and make sure that it happens. That's the benefit of the university having a first-year live-on requirement, is it puts a lot of onus on the university side to make sure the students have a space to live that is safe and supportive for them. And so if that were to happen, know that we have their back. We're working with them, both Shani and I and a couple other professional staff, as well as our chapter advisors and volunteers are right there along the way through recruitment to make sure that we're able to support students in finding a place to land, regardless of what the outcome is for recruitment.
Yes, I can definitely say I got my cardio on last year moving some students into the residence halls. So we are there for them no matter what they decide is best for them. Okay, so a few of our next questions also have to do with housing, so I'm going a little bit out of order, but I promise we'll get to all of your questions. And I think really anybody actually on the call could probably talk a little bit about maybe what y'all are planning. And it says, are the numbers available in fraternity and sorority facilities, are they going to be limited this year for spots of incoming members? And they're curious about social distancing and kind of what y'all are thinking for that. So I know y'all are still working through it, but I think parents would love to kind of see insight on what y'all are thinking. Maybe I'll have Katie go first since she's unmuted.
Well, here's one of the beautiful things about Greek life is that we all, every single one of us, I know that Richard, Mitchell, Maggie, we're all talking to you about, not only, being in sororities at the time that we were, but also now being advisors and helping in some way, shape, or form for the new collegiates coming through. We are at the mercy, just like everyone else is, with the state of Idaho, with the different guidelines that are coming out. I can tell you that when this began, at least, every sorority and fraternity that I have worked with, we're very cognizant of what is happening in today's environment. And so things are moving so rapidly that we are making sure that we stay right in line with what the recommendations are. We stay within our own guidelines in terms of what are going to be the expectations when we come back to school in the fall. So I do imagine every fraternity on campus, every sorority on campus is adjusting as they need to make sure that we adhere to, social distancing, we adhere to the guidelines, and we make sure every single person is safe. With some of the information that was already shared, that's where that peace of mind as a parent comes in, right? That's where that you have alumni that are stepping into the fold and really making sure that they are managing some of the different responsibilities, guidelines, and expectations that are coming out. So it is definitely something that we don't have a clear-cut view in terms of what the expectations are going to be exactly, but when they do come out, I can't imagine not one house pivoting because of the enormous magnitude of safety that we really all do hold for every collegiate in every house.
That was fantastic, Katie. I greatly appreciate that. And I think something I'll add in here, and then maybe shift it over to one of our other panelists, is that one thing that I think is right at the core. So it's right at the core of the tradition and history of our fraternity sorority community is the nature of collaboration and community feel. that we put into the experience, and that comes right from, you know, off the backs of Maggie, Katie, Rick, Mitch, and moving us forward during their time and handing that over to the current students. And I think that what that has produced is, you know, we put together a hefty document as a community to provide guidance and resources of what social distancing and what safety protocols could look like in a chapter facility, to the point where every single chapter on our campus, and we have 34 of them, is going to provide an action plan that will prepare them for the fall. And that action plan is going to be a guide that the office understands, that parent and family members are going to be provided a summary of as well, or an opportunity to look at those, because we want you to feel comfortable and confident in our community that we have your students back, we have your back in that partnership, and we're going to be there through the end of this. And I think that, you know, from my perspective, you know, having a student join, the peace of mind I have is having a student join and live in a chapter facility. I know that there's accountability in that system. I know that we have lots of partners on all ends to make sure that that stuff happens and that our students are as safe as possible. And by setup and by design, you know, moving from a little bit of a comparison to a residence hall setup, you have hundreds of students in that residence hall versus, you know, a smaller, tight-knit community that usually lives in a chapter facility, somewhere in the ballpark of, you know, 40 to 70 people. Still not hundreds, right? And so I think that as far as the community spread, the opportunity to social distance, the opportunity to have that accountability piece is much greater and supported in our chapters than most people can think of. Mitch, Maggie, Rick, anything that you want to add to that?
This is Richard. Just to kind of echo the collaboration. Back in spring break, as soon as President Green kind of announced the way forward for the university given COVID-19, there was immediate outreach from the Greek Life office and Nick, and very quickly we had aligned all of the House corporation boards were able to get on and share information and action plans, and we were able to align very, very quickly. And I was just very impressed with the collaboration that occurred, and much thanks to Nick and his leadership and what the university was able to put out, because we had a pretty good idea of the direction we wanted to go, and based on input from the other houses in the Greek Life office, we were able to make some good tweaks to that plan, and I think we all responded very proactively and very quickly, and it seemed to work very, very well.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Maggie, it looks like you wanted to, Maggie and Mitch, I think this is definitely a quality question and we want to spend time on it. So Maggie, if you want to go, and then Mitch, if you want to follow up on that.
I'll just make a quick comment, Mitch. So from a planning standpoint, Gamma Phi Beta, our chapter here, Z chapter, is doing quite a bit of collaborative work right now. In fact, I was on a phone call with Nick earlier today about some idea sharing that we are trying to just brainstorm through and then implement come August. So we're trying to think about creative ways to use our larger spaces in the facility to still make the experience feel somewhat normal for the women when they return, so that there is that sense of home feel while we maintain social distancing and adhere to any new policies, procedures that either the university comes out with or what our Gamma Phi Beta International Facilities Management Company recommends. So we're looking at different things. Normally, our members would all be sleeping in the same room, the same sleeping porch setup. We're trying to think about maybe moving some women into their day rooms and or using one of our study spaces to have bunk beds in instead. We've also talked with our chef, and we're planning to go forth with grab-and-go meals instead of plated, sit down family style dinners and lunches. We've also considered getting creative and maybe having meetings outside in open air spaces. Moscow's so lucky to have so many places available to do that, or at least pare back and kind of break up the different groups by their pledge class the year that they joined the chapter, and be in some of those larger spaces in the facility where we could practice social distancing. And then, of course, treating our current out-of-house members as still valued members, but if they don't need to be at the facility, there's not going to be the same expectation that they have to be at every single event, be at every chapter meeting, and so forth. So just really trying to meet the members where they're at so that they can feel some semblance of similarity, but also know that we value their safety and their wellness above all. Just trying to continue to brainstorm about that as the summer goes by.
Thank you,
I
Maggie.
think just to add to that, I think a lot of the chapters have been planning for the last 4 to 6 weeks. And we met again yesterday on our side and just started talking about more of the details of the different scenarios, getting additional cleaning that's going to happen, maybe twice a day cleaning for the restrooms and handles and light switches and things like that. We're talking about how to spread the guys as much as possible across the house. Our house is pretty big and it holds quite a few people. And even when it's full, there's still a lot of extra room in either the formal living room, the library, the rec room. Those are all huge rooms, so we can spread people out fairly well. And we're just doing a lot of planning for best case scenario and worst case scenario. And we'll see what actually happens in 3 or 4 months when this all comes together. But we're talking through scenarios. We're very concerned and very aware. So we're doing a lot of conversations. There's a lot of collaboration within our fraternity, but also across the Greek system and with the university, and with, I think, a number of national organizations as well are posting information and perspectives and ideas. So there's a full force effort, I think, to make sure all the kids are safe coming in the fall.
I agree. Couldn't agree more, Mitch. I think the understated fact is typically that, these are private organizations that could pivot probably much quicker than a larger system could, and so being able to really be more active and right there on the cutting edge of whatever the recommendation is and be ready to go, I think is all the confidence I have for our community to uphold this summer as well as this fall, because in many ways we've already done it for the spring, and I think that we were able to just looking right at the data with 5 to 6 only 5 to 6 confirmed cases of coronavirus in Latah County really was because of the quick action of our community, the broad Moscow community, as well as the living group communities on the campus as well. Okay. Shani, did we get close to answering that one?
I think so. You did a wonderful job, and I think obviously note that I think everyone kind of touched on the fact where all of our chapters are still working to figure out what exactly it's going to look like, and it's going to look different for everybody, but you will be communicated with, I think, is the biggest thing to note. Okay, so we got a lot of questions about recruitment. What's recruitment going to look like? Is recruitment canceled? Both from the fraternity and sorority side, it looks like we might have an alumni on watching us too, and she said that recruitment, I'm sure, looks a little different than when she went through. So can y'all talk about what some changes y'all are anticipating and some things to keep in mind as recruitment kind of gets closer with COVID and the steps we're taking?
I think maybe I'll kick this one off. I know I spoke a lot, but I'll kick this one off and then maybe shift over to some of our other panelists. I think, as you can imagine, and what you've already heard is that fraternity sorority life, we're really great at committees and putting together work groups to make things happen. And so we do have a couple work groups working through all the details of contingency plans and social distancing expectations, personal protective equipment purchasing and supplies that is going to prepare us for the recruitment experience this fall. We're also receiving quite a bit of national guidance from our partners up at the national headquarters for every chapter on our campus, really talking about students coming from all different areas of the country and maybe outside of the country to come through the recruitment experience. And we want fraternity sorority to be offered to everybody and accessible to everybody as much as possible. And so what that will look like is really looking through how do we maximize the education your student and you all can receive prior to them coming to campus, so that event sizes, if we're making those smaller, if we're adjusting the length of those events, that we're able to pivot and provide that education and chance to communicate and expose themselves to the different chapters ahead of time, as well as in person. And so we're moving pretty quickly towards a hybrid model where there'll be some virtual interaction, some interaction prior to your student coming to campus by different folks from all the chapters reaching out to get to know them, building a relationship, building some communication with them, and then looking to bring everyone to campus during our typical recruitment time, the August 15th to 18th, both for our IFC and our Panhellenic community, and really putting together a quality event that is as safe as possible. Again, you and your students will be invited to a debrief of what that plan will look like. Here over, I would guesstimate in the next couple of weeks is when we'll have those plans finalized, and we'll walk through that with you and answer any additional questions that you may have at that time. Recruitment, I'll say it officially on the record that recruitment will happen. But it will not happen the same way that we did in fall 2019, because it already has, we've already had to shift a little bit there in the sense that your student hasn't come to uidaho bound yet. We've not seen them in person just yet. So it's already looking different, but we're guaranteeing it's going to happen in some shape or form. If it were to shift to that hybrid model, we will be looking to credit back a prorated cost to you for whatever that price was that you paid for that recruitment registration or are about to pay for that. Any adjustments we make that we're able to give money back, we know that's important for you all coming into college and for your students. And so we'll get that back to you as soon as possible once those final decisions are made for what the format will look like. I want to see if any of our other panelists might be able to speak a little bit about, some of the insider view of what recruitment preparations are looking like so far. Maybe similar to the fall living situation as well, but I don't know if you all have anything else to add that you'd like to put in here.
Well, I can just jump in real quick. I will tell you, I think one of the positive things that have come out of the current situation that we're in is that all of our students are engaging in different levels and different forms on social media. And what's beautiful about that, as I said, in my initial statement of, do due diligence, take a look, see what the sorority or fraternity, really what their core values are. One of the beautiful things with all of this that we're seeing come out of it is the fact that every fraternity and every sorority on campus has such a unique, eclectic group of individuals. Every single solitary one of them has wonderful women and wonderful men in the house that are so uniquely different. And diversity and inclusion is very, very important as you're moving forward, in your college experience as well as in life. And so I think one of the beautiful things that we've seen come out of it is the fact that you're starting to see each one of those individuals that are in the house really shine with some of their, skill sets and what they're learning and what they're sharing amongst the community. So I guess as a parent, as I look at this and as I look at, the great brothers and sisters that are out there in sorority life, is that there is a place for every student that comes through. There is a house that will absolutely fit where they're needed and where they're wanting to go. So it's a sense of camaraderie and almost a home feeling away from home. So I think that, in summary, really to look at things across the board and to really make sure that your student knows that even though they're unique gifts, their special talents, whatever, makes them who they are, they're going to be able to find a place where they really fit in. And that's why it's such an amazing experience. And Rush might look a little different, but in the end, I truly believe that there's a place for every student coming through that is looking for something.
Thank you, Katie. See Mitch, and then we'll go over to Maggie.
I think the most important thing over the summer will actually be to try to meet as many people virtually as possible for your students. We don't have any social events planned yet. We're kind of waiting to see how all that dust settles, but we're still contacting people. we've been contacting people for a number of weeks and having either phone conversations or video conversations or texting exchanges, emails, whatever communication is possible without actually getting close. So I feel that's still important. It's probably more important this year to get a taste of, to what Katie said, there's an opportunity for everyone to find some place to live, but you have to probably talk a lot more to a lot more people over the summer, because the rush window is tight anyhow, and when you can't interact socially, it's going to be even tighter. So I would emphasize just talking to more of the recruitment chairs and the members across the state or the Northwest as much as possible. I think that would be most important.
That's fantastic.
This is Richard.
Advice.
I can
Thank you
jump
much.
in. And just to echo on Katie and Mish's comments, the personalities of each from house to house vary very widely, and it's going to be a bigger challenge trying to assess what the personality of a house is, talking via Zoom calls or texting, etc. And so it might get discouraging if the first 1, 2, 3, 4 interactions your student doesn't feel a good fit. And I would just encourage them to keep going because it's probably going to take longer to figure out which house is the best fit. But there's just a wide variety of personalities that each house has, and strengths and some challenges that each house is having. But I would just encourage them to get out there and talk with as many of the rush chairmen as possible. And also, from if the parent has questions, ask your student to get a name of an alumni from the rush chairman, because each of the rush chairmen for each of the houses should have an alumni advisor. And that alumni advisor would be more than willing to answer questions as well from a parent perspective. And feel free to ask for that if you do have concerns or have questions.
Thank you, Richard, and all of you for incredible perspective on that. I think there's a tendency, with us we're slightly under 3 months out from the recruitment experience for both our IFC and Panhellenic communities. Your student wants you to know what's their packing list, what are they expected to bring, what's the schedule of recruitment going to look like. And I think right in line with asking your questions and finding those resources, encouraging a student to build those social connections virtually to start, and we're hoping that we can move into a smaller setting of more in-person things over the summer as well. Just know that information will come, and it will come to you all, both to you, parent and family information is asked for on our registration process. In the campus director recruitment software that we use, your student will have a chance to put your information in there, and we're going to communicate that out to you all so that you can have that as in a timely manner, putting some final touches on the details, the schedule, as well as those packing lists, and we'll have those out to you pretty soon. But we're also going to give an opportunity for a little bit of an orientation, and that will happen virtually. But we'll have an opportunity for you to have the full introduction and for your student to have a full introduction to what their experience is going to look like for recruitment, going over the schedule, introducing them to the different chapter and council officers that help run the show, and giving them a chance to interact with them and prepare themselves for the recruitment experience. That will happen just before recruitment starts, again, virtually, and we'll have that information out to you all here shortly in the next couple of weeks. Shani, how are we doing on our live questions here?
Yes, so we have about 4 left. I'm going to try to tie 2 of them together because I think that they can be. Some parents are curious about kind of what the culture is like living inside the house. One specifically brought up like video games, how late can they stay up, and then someone also asked about emotional support animals in houses. So I'm thinking we can fall into one and kind of talk about the culture in your chapter facilities.
I'm definitely here for that question about the limit on video games, so I appreciate whoever put that in. Know that we appreciate you for that question. So Who wants to grab this one first?
I can jump in, Nick. So as far as the video games and the internet access, it's not limited directly. However, each of the houses have academic standards that all of the members are required to uphold. And within each house, both fraternity and sorority, they have a scholarship chairman. And the role of the scholarship chairman is to monitor the grades of everyone. And if someone is struggling, to get identify resources for them, get them to the right place. Almost all the houses, I believe, still have what we call a study table, and which is a required number of study hours that each student must put in. And the number of hours is decreased or increased depending on how they're doing. So if a student's starting to get good grades and showing progress, then the number of required hours is reduced. So bottom line is it's managed indirectly, and there's a lot of peer pressure, if you will, to maintain academic standards. And Nick can also speak to the all Greek average, GPA versus university average, et cetera. And throughout history, the Greek average has always been higher than the university average. And I don't know, Nick, if you want to touch on that as well.
Yes, definitely. So I'm going to put a link into the chat box here in just a second, but giving you the direct link access to our academic section of our website, you're going to find our community academic report. So what you've heard a couple of times is that that accountability piece on performance and striving and trying to deliver and encouraging our chapters to deliver on what they promise their members and promise to support them in achieving. So you'll see a full community listing of all of our chapters within the IFC and Panhellenic community, what their membership size is, what the current or what they achieve for that term GPA as an average as a chapter, as well as what their cumulative GPA is as a chapter as well. And so for the fall 2019, we're just about to put final touches on our spring 2020 report. So that will be on this link as well. But for the fall 2019, the all university average that we had for all undergraduates was 3.07 GPA. And then you could see on the report that I'll put in the link that both our Panhellenic community as well as our IFC community coming in at or above that pretty consistently over the past couple of years. And part of what we do as a office to provide that support to our chapters is we compile a grade report for each member of our organizations and send that per organization report to each chapter so that they're able to see how their members are performing, and so that they are able to intervene early and often as needed and develop an academic plan that makes sense for that student to help them succeed in their progress. So definitely check out that website, check out the long list of academic reports that you can find for spring and fall semesters, and know that will be the same link that you'll go to for spring 2020 to receive that community report as well. With a lot of changes around COVID-19, and the opportunity for our students to go to a pass-fail opportunity, which is fairly common across the entire country for a lot of institutions, just know that the grade report will be compiled a little bit differently, but you'll still have the same information on there. We'll be listing things alphabetically and putting a little bit of a disclosure explaining what that pass-fail scenario looked like and how to interpret the grade report as such. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate you bringing that up so we can share that resource. Looking at maybe Katie or Mitch, what does that expectation of behavior in the chapter facility look like?
Well, I think I would like to jump in and just emphasize something that Rick said, which is the peer pressure piece, because there's a lot of peer pressure in the fraternities and sororities, and for the most part, it's very positive around academics and behavior and social activities. So the peer pressure is there to make sure that the kids are studying and that they're behaving socially, and so they don't fall through the cracks. I think that's a super important thing to understand, because the peer pressure comes from the members, but there also is peer pressure from us as advisors, because what they do on campus represents who we are as an adult, And there's pressure there to make sure they're behaving and make sure they're studying and doing the academics that they need to, right? So that's super important, I think, to emphasize.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If I could just kind of piggyback on what Mitch said there, one of the other key things that really differentiates Greek life is the fact that, we really are looking for the next generation of leaders to go through, some of the very specific things that Richard laid out about, running the house and having an office in the house and the leadership that, every one of the men and women are exposed to being in a house like that. And with leadership comes accountability. And accountability comes with some social pressure to make that happen, because it is very important that we have great grades. It's very important that we hold true to our values, that we are, philanthropic and we help within our communities. That's the difference. That's what makes Greek life so unique and special. And that is definitely something that we as advisors really take to heart and hold true as we're trying to help the next generation of leaders, come out of especially the University of Idaho.
Thank you for that beautiful, beautiful perspective, Katie. And Shani, how are we doing on questions? I know that we're right around at 7 o'clock here, but want to make sure that we got to all of those.
Yes. Okay. So we have one last question that was asking about communication, because I know Mitch brought up that their IFC chapter is going to start communicating. This is going to look a little different for Panhellenic, just with some different things and guidelines that have come out. So keep that in mind. But they wanted to know if they were recommending for incoming freshmen to reach out to sororities rather than sororities reaching out to them. And then one last just says, y'all are awesome. First-rate individuals.
Great. Now, to that question about the incoming students, especially on the sorority side, I'm going to venture to guess that the question is coming from someone who's quite familiar with the Panhellenic experience, which there are some structures and guidelines to really help our women find the place that they need to land that is a good match for them. And typically that means letting them kind of guide their own experience and not having a lot of pressure on them. What we've done in partnership with our National Panhellenic Conference, and so that national umbrella organization that helps guide all of our organizations, is really that because of so much of our high school students' experiences, our high school seniors' experiences being disrupted during this pandemic, that early and frequent social connection in any shape or form, so in mostly being virtual, that we can provide, we need to do that. I think that's going to make them feel like they made a good decision in signing up for recruitments, or that they're on the right track in exploring recruitment. It's also going to help them make the right decision or feel affirmed in their decision to come to the University of Idaho. I would put any of our students out there to share their experience, and you can't help but feel inspired to want that Vandal experience as well. I get it by association as an employee at the university, and couldn't be more honored and I'm happy to work with such a great community and institution. And so I think that what we want is that your students to reach out and ask the questions that they need to ask, and to connect with our chapters, reach out through their social media, to use their language, slide into their DMs on the chapter accounts, whatever they want to do there. Make those contacts. Our community is prepared for it. They're ready to answer the questions, and I think that's going to help your student feel a little bit more confident in the decision that they're making. And same for you. Challenge some of our students, challenge our organizations, and ask them the hard questions, and see. We're going to put our money where our mouth is in that one, and really have our students speak for their experience, have our alumni speak for their experience, and really stand behind the product that we're essentially selling to your student. So we're really excited to have you start doing that. That can also be done through the Greek@uidaho email. We're more than happy to provide the contact information for our chapters and our advisors, as well as any alumni that might be appropriate to connect you with, as well as every single chapter on our campus has a web page that has that contact information listed for you. So you can reach out to the chapter president, your student can reach out to the chapter president, as well as a recruitment chairman, as long as they provided that information to us, as well as potentially an advisor to get in contact with them as well. Any words of wisdom on what that contact might look like over the summer from you all?
kind of a tangent of that, but chapters love receiving recommendations for potential new members. So maybe that's something that you, if you are an alumnus of a certain group, could write a recommendation for your student, talk to other family members, teachers, coaches, community leaders that know them well, and that helps to create a more passive point of communication, of course, because it's not student to group specifically, but it helps give your student that little extra boost beyond just the conversations that they would have or the outreach that they might have on their side. And that can be a really big help to the chapters sometimes, to know that, yes, you know, there's other people out there that are feeling these great vibes and, you know, getting a great feel for how the student's leadership experience might fit or their personality might fit. So do the recommendation route if you're at all feeling inclined. I think too, like what Nick said, as far as communicating students to the social media platforms, that's fine. And if you don't get a response back, just because some of those channels might be moderated by students, the students are kind of feeling, or the women that I advise in Gamify, they're kind of feeling like this exhale, this pause right now that the semester is done, and they're kind of in a lull state waiting for some other sorority business to take place at the end of June. So don't feel bad about pinging them again or reaching back out and saying, you know, hey, I haven't gotten a response yet. Can you give me some insight here? I think too, our women are just so used to not being able to share, or, you know, for fear of promising a bid when that's not something that we want to do whatsoever. So that might be a little bit of a, you know, we all learn as we go type of scenario. So that, again too, like if you're not getting a response or you're still left with other questions, like Shani has been saying a lot tonight, reach out to the Greek Life office, because those staff are there to help be the bridge between your students, you, and the University of Idaho recruitment process. So let us know. Let them know how we can help ease some of those fears, quell some of the tension. So that'd be what I would recommend.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that. And one thing I think that just to make sure we hit this in the right to the right note is your students are in no way, shape, or form required to make this contact, right? They're not required to follow the social media accounts and to make that contact. But if they have a question, if they want to get a little bit of a perspective from one of our chapters that they're interested in, they're more than welcome to reach out. And if you're looking for more of the policy side of it, some of those policies have been loosened, and the structures around them are going to provide space for our students to respond to them and connect with them. And of course, we have our students. You know, we advise them and work with them to really be, you know, impartial to that process, so that your student is not being, you know, unduly influenced into one organization when they have so many others to look at and consider. So yes, the contact to your student is more than welcome to reach out to the chapter social media accounts to engage with them through that platform. We will be hosting various virtual opportunities as well, whether it be Instagram Live, Facebook Live, to give chapters an opportunity to give their elevator pitch and tell your student what they're all about. And then there'll be some live Q&A right there for them as well. So be on the lookout for those things. We'll communicate those out to everyone who's registered for recruitment, as well as on the university's virtual experience website. I do see a few things came in, and I'm going to try to wrap us up into some of these things as I close out. But wanted to give an opportunity, and first of all, to thank all of our panelists for their time and commitment to not only their organization, but the entire fraternity sorority community here at the University of Idaho. I think it's an incredible sign and an example of what we have to offer and what that lifetime membership and commitment looks like. So thank you so much. And I also want to give a space for you all to give your closing thoughts and give, you know, shed some light and some wisdom on our parents and family members that are attending.
No, thank you, Nick. I would just encourage all the parents to encourage and coach their kids to branch out, and even if it's a little bit in their uncomfort zone, that's all part of the university experience and learning, what you don't know. I know all of the rest chairmen for my fraternity have been reaching out to as many students as possible, and I've been soliciting recommendations from our alumni group and others. And it's while on one hand it may be intimidating, it will definitely be well worth the effort. And I know how I felt my senior year in high school. The last thing I thought I would do was join a fraternity, and I ended up pushing myself to do so. And like I said, it ended up being one of the best decisions in my life. In all the people I met and the experiences I had, and what I was able to leverage that into my career and other relationships going forward.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it, and thank you for joining us tonight. Katie, any last thoughts?
One of the things that is really challenging, especially as parents, is that your child is leaving the nest and there's so much uncertainty. One of the things that I can share is that being part of the organization as an advisor now, there is nothing more rewarding than seeing the young women and men come through the organizations that we are working with and dealing with, and seeing the leadership and growth that is happening. I tell my son often, when you are uncomfortable, you are right over your target zone, because when you stay on top of the mountain, you are never going to grow. And there comes a time when, as a parent, you have to say, how can I give my child the best support that I can to make them successful? And know that you have a group of men and women and advisors and adults and people that are really just pulling to help your child succeed. It was the best thing that I've ever done. I have lifelong friends, still have lifelong friends and lifelong connections across the entire United States. So if you're thinking about it, do it. If you have friends that are thinking about their children doing it, tell them to do it. They will find their place. We're here. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. We will answer anything that you need, and we'll make sure that your child is taken care of.
I feel like we need bumper stickers, T-shirts, large billboards with that saying that that you tell your son all the time. Can't thank you enough for joining us this evening and sharing your wisdom. Maggie.
Sure. And this might sound a little kitschy, y'all, but one of my favorite aspects of being a member and having gone through recruitment was to see all of those instant bonds that are formed between the potential new members and current members, and the fact that this experience is not just 4 years but for life. I cannot say that enough, because I feel like to the point of being on the precipice of the mount and not wanting to go into the discomfort zone, it's so important for the students to step off and do something that is going to be a little challenging for them. Maybe that's participating in a chapter, maybe it's staying engaged as they're moving into that alum space too, alumnus, alumna, whatever their case might be. But to really lean in and feel comfortable with that discomfort, and I promise you that it will soon turn into something that is so good and so positive for them. And even in this uncertain time with the pandemic happening all around us, our students are still looking for that sense of belonging, that sense of finding home away from home, and that emotional connection, that community connection, that is unchanging no matter the circumstances. So again, we are ready to welcome your students, to provide them with this safe environment, and just let us know how we can help you.
Y'all, I don't know about all of our participants, but we have our panelists dropping gold again tonight, so I appreciate it. Mitch, last but certainly not least.
Sure. I just want to reiterate that encourage your student to go through the process and meet a lot of people and make a decision. Don't go in with any predisposed positions on any group of people or even the Greek system as a whole. it was certainly the best decision I've ever made. The closest people I know and the longest friendships I have are all Greek, and many of them Fiji. I've had 4 dentists, and they've all been Fijis. The 6 guys at my wedding were all Fijis. The people I talk with on a daily, regular basis, they're all Fijis. But it's a good network of people, and for me, it's led to internships and jobs, and now I'm giving back with providing guidance for internships and jobs for the undergraduates. So just reiterating what the others have said, but go through the process, be very open-minded, listen, ask a lot of questions. And if you have questions you want to ask me, I'm very transparent, and I'm more than willing to lay it all down and help resolve any concerns. So Nick has my contact information, so feel free to reach out to me directly. So
thank you so much, Mitch, and I greatly appreciate your ongoing commitment and support, not only just tonight, but as always. Appreciate your help on and helping the community and the chapter of Fiji. All right, folks, that kind of closes us out for the evening, and a couple of things I wanted to touch on is just that we're always here. You've seen it through some messages that Shani has provided. Reaching out to Greek at uidaho.edu is the email address. Going to uidaho.edu/Greek is another great way to get additional information, resources, a lot of the information that we shared and referenced, those links that we touched. If you at least go to our landing page of that uidaho.edu/Greek, you're going to find all of that menu of options on the side: academic support, a family and parent section, alumni section, see what they're all about, right? Look at all of our individual chapter pages and get to know them. And we'll have links on each of those pages that go to their national website, a local website, their social media, all the things that you can imagine. As your student is considering and makes that decision to register for recruitment or has already registered, depending on when they register, there may be a little bit of a lag in that information email getting over to you. Just knowing our online system that we use for the registration process, they're going to get an immediate email that confirms their registration to whatever email they put in during that purchase piece. So that could be yours, it could have also been theirs, so have them double check on both of those. But also know that we'll be communicating pretty regularly starting soon, now that the semester has closed and our students have made that transition, the student leaders that guide our recruitment process. Now that they've made that transition out of their finals, we can full force ahead on recruitment. So more information coming soon. If it's a little bit of a delay, don't worry. The first contact that your student should receive should be from a student on the council that is helping volunteer with the governing council. On the IFC fraternity side, it would be an IFC recruitment specialist. If they get a text message from someone with that title, it's not a scam. It's the real thing for them reaching out, right? And on the Panhellenic side, it will be a recruitment counselor. In the future, they'll learn that they call themselves rogammas, just using Greek letters, but recruitment guide, someone that is there to be a mentor for them and a peer support for them through their recruitment experience. So that contact is normal. It's encouraged. We want your student to feel like they're supported. If they're hearing something that seems off from one of the chapters or about one of the chapters, they have that mentor. They have the Greek Life office they can reach out to confirm those things. As always, we're here to be a partner with you. We know that sending your student away to go to college, even if you live in Moscow with us, it's still a transition, still something different. Myself, Shani, we come from backgrounds of first-generation college students. We're somewhat far from home ourselves. Went to school at a distance away, so if a student is wanting to process through that with one of us, more than happy to do that. But know that you have a good partner on our end. We know what that's like to be, communicating and keep a relationship going from distance. So we're always here to partner with you and provide that support. But feel free to reach out. I would encourage you to follow us on social media. Our Instagram and Facebook would be at Idaho Greek Life. So just type that into your Facebook as well as your Instagram. Great resources, lots of preview information is put on there for our students. We get excited about recruitment. It truly is our best holiday and our favorite time of the year. So you'll see a lot of information going up consistently starting now as well as into the future, into the summer. We can't wait to see your student's name and come across our registration page. And we hope that you're staying well and being safe out there as we continue to go through our challenging times ahead, and know that you have a community here to support you as well. But thank you again to our panelists. Thank you, Shani, for helping put this together and moderate. Go Vandals, and we can't wait to see your student here in the fall as well as you.